Dean?
I'll be happy to take it up. So first of all, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I met several of you in Laramie in January, and several of you were also part of a symposium that we did via Zoom for the Merchants Advisory Committee. For those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Dean Schaefer. I chair the American World Money Founding Council, and I'm also a board member of the Merchant Advisory Group that you'll hear from soon. So my testimony today is intended to augment what Scott just mentioned, and also to tie into what you'll hear about from the Merchant Advisory Group. American World Money intends to benefit the state of Wyoming. How are we going to do that? The idea of American World Money is that we're going to incent consumer transactions, will increase commercial transaction volume, and thereby increase sales tax related to that increased transaction volume. So increased sales tax certainly benefits the state of Wyoming. AWM intends to enter the established sandbox under the Secretary of State's oversight. And I want to thank you all. I mean, the creation of the sandbox in Wyoming is an unbelievable benefit. It allows for innovation. It allows for companies and organizations like MShift or AWM to be disruptive. It allows us to make what will mistakes that we will undoubtedly make along the way as we begin to test and pilot this, and to correct those mistakes with your help. So again, thank you for the creation of the sandbox. Within that sandbox, we intend to develop our pilot program. Again, we intend to start small. We intend to start in a way that is ensures that consumers are protected and that the desired benefits of the system are delivered to the stakeholders. So our initial purpose is to determine the viability and sustainability of the system. The pilot will be in Cheyenne, Laramie, and Casper. And again, the idea is to make sure that the framework actually works. Throughout the day, you've had several specific asks or requests, and I hope to be able to answer at least a couple of those. And so what does AWM need? We've worked with Matt, or really I should say that Scott and the rest of the MShift team have worked with Matt to discuss the creation of a public benefit corporation in the state of Wyoming. And I think that Matt shared that with this committee, and it is extremely important that we have that written into legislation. The idea is that AWM needs to benefit not just the stakeholders, the shareholders of the corporation, but it also needs to benefit Wyoming consumers, Wyoming merchants, and the state itself. So that is part one. Part two is we need legislation that creates a legal framework for digital identity. And that's been a great part of this discussion. Now, I certainly agree that it has to be a framework. It cannot be prescriptive. It cannot tie itself to a given methodology or a given technology, but it does need to articulate certain aspects, certain characteristics of what a digital identity system looks like, and it needs to be consistent with existing federal and state law that many organizations already have to comply with. So at an extremely high level, and these are conceptual attributes, these are things that we think should be included in the framework. So certified digital identity must be managed by the individual, and it must be able to be used in a multiplicity of contexts. Private corporations that already collect and maintain personal identity, like Scott mentioned, banks, credit unions, and others, during their ordinary course of business, and which already comply with the existing federal and state laws, are the entities which will provide the blockchain identity, the blockchain-based identity services through their white-labeled AWM application. You all have already talked about portability. We certainly agree with that. Self-sovereignty is sort of table stakes. The individual's identity has to be protected in a self-sovereign environment. There has to be ubiquity of use. So this talks to the multiplicity of use cases. So that ID should be able to be used for financial transaction, proof of age, and a whole host of other potential use cases. And finally, as Scott mentioned, the system has to be free to all users. The good news is that the AWM proposed system meets all of these criteria. Beyond its digital identity attributes, we would also like to have a deeper discussion with the Select Committee and other stakeholders to provide an understanding of how the AWM initiative, once it's proven and scaled, could benefit the state. I think that's sort of all of my prepared comments. So thank you very much. And I think Scott and I would love to entertain your questions.
Yeah. I think everyone's on mute right now. Yep.
I'm on mute. Committee, I was just going to say we could certainly take some questions now, but what we can also do is bring in John. Trying to see who else we have from the merchant group in here. I just see John, I think, to kind of broaden. Do you want Senator Rothfuss? I'm not sure if you had a question, or do you think maybe we just bring them in and broaden the discussion? What do you want to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to ask kind of the standard question, which we got some hints at, but that was the, next steps. What can we be doing? It sounds like focusing on that digital identity framework is the most enabling step that you see right now. Is that accurate?
Yes. We are looking for I think, as other people have discussed, we're not looking for a prescription of like, hey, this is what you need to do to have digital identity in the state of Wyoming, but rather to have a level playing field so that we can test out our version of a self-sovereign digital ID and demonstrate that its capabilities. And then as we demonstrate the success in Wyoming, then we're able to port it to additional states.
Gotcha.
And I think what's going to be really beneficial is the way that we're looking to demonstrate the capability of digital ID is through transactional activity. So commerce is the number one use case that we see.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. And thanks for being here,
Sure.
Scott, and Dean as well. Appreciate your participation and your ongoing participation, obviously, since we've been doing this work.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Test run then, and as I understand it, Cheyenne, Laramie, and Casper.
Yes. We were looking at initially doing solely Laramie, but the merchant advisory group, their merchants have, I think 50% of them have a footprint in either one or all of those cities. So we're looking at expanding the pilot and doing it in 3 cities in unison. Dean, anything to add on that?
No, I think just those 3 cities, as I recall, represent about half the population of Wyoming. So it's a small pilot, but nonetheless, I think it's sufficient to help us understand where we make mistakes and how to correct them.
Thanks, Dean, for helping remind the other representatives why they don't like us representatives from Cheyenne.
Sorry about that.
All right. Guys, don't, I'm not going to boot you guys out. What I'm actually going to do is bring in John so we can, you kind of teed that up for us. So we're just going to bring him right on in, and we may come back to you with some more questions. So don't go anywhere.
Absolutely.